Welcome back, everybody. This is Michael Shanti with my guest Rinaldo Brutoco from the World Business Academy, and we're talking about the end of the devil, the ultimate end of the Diablo Canyon nuclear power plant. So the 2024-2025 that they're quoting now, that's not good enough for you, is what you're saying.
No, because people are going to die.
Right.
And that's if we get lucky. That's if there is no seismic event, if there's no more Fukushimas. Do you know that that plant sits on the exact type of fault line that Fukushima does?
Is that the Hosgri fault? Or
It's called a subduction fault.
Right. This is the new fault they discovered recently?
No, actually, that's part of the whole thing.
Okay.
It's the one that runs along the shoreline.
Okay.
Might be Hosgri, I'm not sure. Look, there's 6 main faults and about 7 minor ones involved in this whole thing.
Yeah.
So the plant literally sits on a couple of fault lines.
Right.
Literally. And when a fault line touches another fault line, it magnifies the power of the earthquake. And so this thing is sitting on a fault that's connected to all these other faults. Mm-hmm. So this thing is, we get one bad seismic event, you got yourself a heck of a problem. Now what they've told the public, which they know is false, they know it's false. They said, well, don't worry, we're sitting on a bluff 25, 30 feet at least above the sea. So if there was a tsunami, it won't get to us. Hey, that tsunami is going to wipe out the intake and outtake pipes.
Right.
It's going to stop that. It's going to be a catastrophic shutdown. Uncontrolled catastrophic shutdown, which means, boom.
Another Fukushima.
So the fact that they're 30 feet above the shoreline today, when a wall of water 40 to 50 feet's coming at you, doesn't really help you. In fact, it would only take about a 10 or 15-foot wall of water to really get them.
Yeah, to get the pipes.
Because they're sitting at sea level. When you have a tsunami, and that's coming at the shore, and there's a pipe in front of it, and the water's got to go through that, you know what it does to the pressure in that pipe? It becomes like a fire hose. It's not a good idea. Now, when you come back to it, you asked why we didn't get those 3 points with San Onofre.
Yeah.
And the answer is because we tried to talk sense into San Onofre. We tried to work with them. They refused. And since they refused, because they had a catastrophic shutdown, by the time we got to fixing it, then it took them a year and a half to agree they wouldn't reopen it. Mm-hmm. It had already closed. So there was not much bargaining room.
Right. Now, my understanding is the failure they had at San Onofre was on a brand new part they had installed. It failed, and this is an article I read. They said it failed, and the cost to replace that with another new part was just prohibitive.
No, that's not true.
And that's one of the reasons.
So here's the part they're referring to is called the heat exchanger. It's a $675 million part.
Not cheap.
It's the core of what makes a nuclear plant able to make steam. Mm-hmm. So take your fingers and put your fingers together, interlock them. Okay? Your right hand, the fingers of the right hand are connected to the dirty water that's circulating around the nuclear pile that's full of radioactivity.
Right.
The fingers on your left hand, which are interlaced, is clean water on the other side of the wall that goes to the turbine that spins the turbine to make steam. Well, make steam, spins the turbine, electricity.
Okay.
If you rupture the membrane, the glass membrane between these two fingers, what do you get? You get the dirty plutonium water over where the clean water is supposed to be. It goes through the turbine, it becomes steam, it goes through the turbine and it goes up into the air, and all of a sudden it's like a fan blowing radiation into the sky.
Right.
Okay, so that part, the steam generator, is the thing that is your fingers. The $675 million part is the part, and they're little tiny little glass, they look almost like fingers, like little nipples, and they touch each other. What they did, which was criminal in my mind, they went to Mitsubishi, in this case Southern California Edison, and they said, could you soup these up? Could you make these things able to transfer even more heat than they currently do? Because then we'll get more power, and if we get more power, we can sell for more, and we make more profit.
Right.
When they did that, they broke a law. The law says you may not substitute a critical component of a nuclear power plant unless it is a like-kind exchange, meaning it has to be the same part, just a newer one. If it's a different part, different tolerances, different specifications, you are required to go in for a hearing, which they chose not to do.
Okay.
So they violated the law intentionally. By the way, no one's been indicted for this. They should be. They violated the law because they knew they were souping it up. They knew it was not a like-kind exchange. And at that point, even the Nuclear Regulatory Commission said, oh my God, now what do we do? Maybe we got to let this thing stay closed because we don't want to have to disclose what really happened here.
Right.
And they sealed all of the conversations between Mitsubishi and Edison from the public eye because they're suing each other now too.
Right.
Okay? Because Mitsubishi's saying, hey, you told us to do it, we did it.
Right.
And Edison's saying, well, you did it, but you did it wrong and it blew up. They're both right. So they're just pointing at each other. But the point is, that's what they did. And that's incredible. And they both knew it was illegal before they did it. Okay. So once it blew up, there was nothing to negotiate about. Can you rehire, retrain, anything else? Because they didn't want to talk about it. Now, if they had been willing to talk about it, even at that stage, we'd have done something. But they didn't. They hide behind the NRC. They tried to work their political connections. They tried everything they could under the book to keep that plant going. And finally, after it had been shut down from the explosion, basically from the blow up, they ended up seeing that we weren't going to let it reopen.
And of course, they get to claim themselves as green environmentalists because they closed down the nuclear power plant.
Whatever. But the point is, you said, was it that they switched out some kind of part and there wasn't enough money? No. What they did is they knowingly, intentionally broke one of the key federal statutes governing nuclear power generation. Intentionally did it. Subjected all the people living around that plant to catastrophic illness. Many people will get catastrophic illness from it because when that much radioactivity goes in the air,
somebody's going to get hit with it.
Someone's going to breathe it. And now I want to come back to Diablo. So Diablo's in the situation now. We're saying to PG&E, look, guys, you've already been convicted of 12 felonies. You blew up half of San Bruno because you were pursuing profit at the expense of maintaining a safe environment for the public.
Right.
So callous disregard for the public safety and well-being. Don't do that again. You guys don't need another black eye. And even if this thing doesn't blow up in the next 9 years, which it could because of the seismic issue, every day people getting hurt. Why would you do that? If now that you know, why would you do that? And so for the State Lands Commission to take their side, and I understand the political power.
Right.
I understand the political pressure. But we're past that in California. We expect California public officials to do their job even if the NRC doesn't.
Right.
And they didn't do their job in this case. And so now, as a small nonprofit, we're the David and Goliath, and we have to take on the state of California all by ourselves. And we will. And we will win, I believe, because the law's on our side, the facts are on our side, and frankly, I think the angels are on our side in this one.
Because, Diablo Canyon was it, when 1981, I think they arrested 1,900 protesters, the largest ever for any anti-nuclear rally movement in the country. So, they have always been on the side of Diablo Canyon as far as the officials. They've always been working on that side.
It's the largest employer in the county.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it took a significant event to get enough people to get through that. And so Fukushima seems to have been sort of the game changer in there.
I don't think it was. I'd like to think so, but it's not. No, I'll tell you. First of all, I got to just for the record, Linda Seeley and the other Mothers for Peace have been fighting that plant for 40 years without a whole lot of gratitude. Really are unusual. They deserve all the credit here. They kept the torch high. They kept the spotlight on this thing. What they needed was some additional support, legally, technically, the kind of stuff we do at the Academy, financially, like knowing where the numbers are. So, I think that without Linda Seeley there, and the Mothers for Peace, and I don't mean to leave out Jane and the others, I just as an example because she's often been the spokesperson, we would not have been able to get up to speed as fast as we did 3 years ago when they asked for our help. Mm-hmm. I would say that if you asked Linda and the group, they would say that we've been great teammates, meaning we've picked up the pieces that they needed help with, that no one's been willing to help with, because it's a thankless job. Nobody sends me, Christmas gifts.
Right.
So it's a real thankless task. You're dealing with a behemoth. It's a monstrous organization, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. You're dealing with massive documentation. Just the financial analysis of these plants alone is something that if you put the papers stacked one on top of the other, you'd have something that's 6-7 feet in the air. You're talking about just a huge amount of work to get to the place where you actually know what happened and you can argue it. And it's been a real privilege and an honor that the Mothers for Peace have asked for our help, and we're really happy we were able to supply it. The case in Los Angeles, now that because we did file, that tolls the statute. So now any environmental group that chooses to join us will be allowed to do so. Had we not filed, then it would have been closed forevermore. So I'm glad we filed. I think we filed. And by the way, I'd urge your listeners, get a copy of the filing. Great filing. I'm really proud of it. It really lays out the case.
Where would they go to find that?
You send a request to info@worldbusiness.org, and we'll send you one electronically.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, just for the record, I would love, even at this late date, to negotiate a deal with PG&E that would solve these problems. I really would.
Have they shown any interest in talking?
There's some indications there, which are positive. I would not take my eye off the ball.
Right.
I would not be confused or dazzled by footwork.
Right.
Talking is one thing, doing is another.
Right.
And, there's this old phrase in the Arabic world, praise Allah and tether your camel. So I would praise them to come to the table and talk to us and work out a comprehensive settlement, which I believe would be extremely good for their shareowners. Their shareowners do not want this to go down with a boom. Their shareowners don't want this to go down with them being forced to do an EIR, because I don't think they'll survive it.
Right. You think
that'll cost them a negotiating position.
Right.
So if they really want to take care of their shareowners, come to the table now. We'll cut a deal. Everybody can win. But if you want to kill people for the next 9 years, well, then there's nothing to talk about.
Right, right.
It's going to come out of your hide as much as we can possibly extract.
So, from the raw economics of it, in today's climate, obviously, fracking has its own list of perils, but it is still happening at a pretty abundant rate, and it's driving down the cost of a lot of energy. How much is that impacting nuclear power in general?
Well, I think it's impacting it a lot. I think there's many things impacting nuclear power. First of all, we've only talked about 2 reactors, San Onofre and Diablo, but the strontium-90 releases that I mentioned, that's every power plant in America does that. Mm-hmm. There isn't one nuclear power plant that doesn't release strontium-90.
Okay.
Because it's an automatic thing that happens when you do nuclear fission. Now, let me just focus for a second on John Kennedy.
Okay. President
Kennedy understood this problem. In July of '63, he was handed a study called the Tooth Fairy Study, in which they analyzed the impact of strontium-90 and what it was doing for cancer and killing people with birth weights and all sorts of prenatal injuries, breast cancers, prostate, you name it, all over the map. And the study basically was so alarming that in those days, what Kennedy was looking at in 1963, he was looking at above-ground nuclear testing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you recall, Russia, the United States, France,
England, I believe.
China, all were doing above-ground testing.
Yeah.
And what Kennedy discovered with his study was, oh my God, we're killing our own people. Because the radioactivity goes up in the air, and he was referring to strontium-90. And it's killing us. So he immediately, as soon as he got the study, in July, he unilaterally suspended all above-ground testing in America. Sent copies of the report to the other nations of the world that had it, and said, look, we need a treaty. None of us should do this because it's going to kill all of us. And in record time for an international treaty, between July when he got the study and he stopped doing above-ground testing, the treaty was signed in October '63.
Wow.
Yeah, 3 weeks before he was shot.
Hard to imagine anything at that level moving that fast these
Unless
days.
It's a smoking gun like you wouldn't believe, which it is.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell you why that's an important story. 2 reasons. Number one, there are only 2 ways you can create strontium-90 on planet Earth. One is above-ground nuclear testing. The other is the normal operation every day of a nuclear power plant. Now, here's why that's so important. Kennedy, when he suspended above-ground testing, said, we would look back with such sadness if even one unborn child was injured or died as a result of the strontium-90 we're putting in the air today. Even one. Which is why we produced a study that said 9 kids will die. And if one was enough to stop all above ground nuclear testing, why would you keep going with a nuclear power plant?
Right.
Okay? Rise to what Kennedy was saying we're capable of as a nation, taking care of each other. Rise above the greed. Rise to the point where you say, I'm not going to do this because even if it makes me money, it's wrong.
Right. Humanity has to play a factor somewhere.
That's the moral position that Kennedy took. Now, I believe Kennedy took that because children have a much higher susceptibility to nuclear radiation than adults.
Sure.
Particularly strontium-90 because it bonds to calcium. So the faster your bones grow, the more you get. He's got John, he's got Caroline. He's got his own little kids playing under the desk. He's going, wait a minute, I don't want these kids to die from this.
Right.
I don't want to come up with childhood leukemia because of this. I'm going to think of my own kids. And the other major cause, because it upticks to calcium, strontium-90, breast milk. So it really affects lactating women.
Right.
Think Jackie. So he's got a wife and 2 kids, and he's going, wow, everybody who's got a wife and 2 kids is going to want to stop this. And even if you don't, you'd like to stop it because somebody else has a wife and 2 kids. So they didn't even know about the prostate cancer angle. They just knew about the breast cancer and the childhood leukemias. So his decision to do the right thing, if even one kid, and he knew many, many kids we heard. Now, when he did that in 1963, from 1963 until about 1972, we have a chart in our book that shows this, the amount of strontium-90 that was measured every year in the air dropped. As time passed, strontium-90 has a 20-year half-life, 29-year half-life. So every year, less and less residuals left, and it was going down and down and down, meaning we were getting the benefit of having stopped above-ground nuclear testing.
Right.
Today, as you sit here, Michael, today, 2016, August 31st, there is more strontium-90 in the air today than there was in 1963. Because from 1972 on, we kept building nuclear power plants. So think about it. We have eliminated one of the most noble acts of any president, unilateral suspension of above-ground nuclear testing. We've eliminated all the benefits. We now have more radiation in the air, floating around, from all our nuclear power plants than we had when we were blowing atom bombs up. And there were years there where, between us and the Russians, 13 bombs a year was not an uncommon number.
Right.
So you think of all the radioactive material those bombs kept throwing in the air, those mushroom-shaped clouds. And we've now exceeded that. We have more ambient strontium-90 today than we did in 1963.
Entirely from nuclear power plants.
Solely because there's no other source.
Right.
There's no other way to get it.
Wow.
Now, that's so, to me, that, and if you say that, well, is that a controversial thing to say? Say, well, let's start with this. Is there any medical person or scientist alive in the world who would not agree with the statement, strontium-90 is one of the most toxic radioactive isotopes known to human beings? It kills. Everybody would agree. Mm-hmm. It's a lethal killer, strontium-90. Number 2, everybody agrees it upticks to calcium, meaning if you've got calcium bonding in your body, either in the form of milk or in the form of bones, teeth, all calcium. If you're exposed to strontium-90, it bonds to the calcium and it stays there. In your mouth as a child, tooth falls out. It stays there in your mouth as an adult because you don't lose your teeth. Right. It stays in your bones. It stays in your breast ducts.
You don't metabolize it.
You don't metabolize the strontium-90. It's a radioactive isotope. It's, by definition, only going to go away over the passage of time, and that takes the half-life, as I say, is 29 years, which means the residuals are around for about 60. So, what do you do if you know that that's a highly radioactive isotope? What do you do if you know every nuclear power plant puts it off? You have to decide, I don't care if I kill people, I'm going to build nuclear plants anyway. And why would you do that? Money. Just money. If you thought you could make as much or more money doing something else, you would, because you got kids too. So what's going on here? What's going on is a form, and this is why I want the public to wake up. If we really want businesses to act more responsibly towards our planet, if we want to deal with climate change, if we want to deal with how bad the cancer rates have become all over the industrial world, we got to be willing to say, you know what? When something is deadly and we know it, we can't let companies keep selling it just to make a profit. We got to hold them accountable. And we can't pass special laws that say even if you kill people, you're not going to be held liable, which we do. But here we get into a even better question. What is the cost per kilowatt hour of a nuclear power plant if I've got to store nuclear waste from it for 10,000 years?
That's a good point.
It's the most expensive energy in the world. Nuclear energy is not anywhere near suitable to solve climate change. Because a lot of people start saying, oh, it's great because it's green. It is not green. It is not even the least bit green. And I want people to know that. So if you go to our website, again, worldbusiness.org, and you look for an article called, I'll find it for you real fast, Nuclear Power, A Mistake in Search of a Mission, is chapter 5 of my old book from 10 years ago, still accurate today. So they can send you an electronic copy of that. Just ask for chapter 5, which is entitled Nuclear Power, A Mistake in Search of a Mission. But let me also suggest that they get this article we wrote in July of 2014, and it was an open letter to James Hansen, who I otherwise very much respect as a climatologist. And the title is Nuclear Power, Totally Unqualified to Combat Climate Change. Why will it not work to combat climate change? Please ask for a copy of the article. It's heavily footnoted. It is impeccably researched. I will stand by every word in it. In fact, it's been out since 2014, and we have not yet found one substantive correction anyone's made to it.
Excellent.
Yeah. So get that article. Nuclear power totally unqualified to combat climate change.
If you replace fission reaction with fusion reactors, would you still have this same strontium outgassing? I mean, the fusion technology hasn't been refined yet, that's for sure. But if they were able to get there, would that be a viable alternative?
Probably. Probably would. Here's the problem, though. What is fusion? Fusion is when you take, basically, you smash nuclei of electrons together in atomic particles, and you get more energy out than you put in.
Mm-hmm.
That's fusion. Okay. We have one giant operational fusion reactor right now, immediately at our disposal. It's called the sun.
And it works well.
It works extremely well. And it isn't about to be shut down. We got at least a couple billion years to go with it. So if you've already got the fusion reactor in the sky, and it's pulsing energy to us every day in the form of wind, sunlight, etc., why wouldn't you use the output of that fusion reactor rather than spend a couple of $1 trillion trying to build a poor imitation? So we got the fusion reactor. It's called the sun.
Yeah, that's a beautiful point. I'm glad that you framed it that way so people could understand. We have all the power we need.
It's a boondoggle to be spending $1 trillion to try and find out how to replicate the sun. It's like, that's crazy. You spend the same amount of money building windmills and photovoltaic cells and geothermal plants, and you won't have to worry about it. Anyway, so I just want to leave people with a really clear understanding. We call this organization in 1986 the World Business Academy because we believe that business can make as much or more money doing things that are good for society, protecting the commons, working with society. They'll make as much or more money in the long run as they would ripping and raiding.
Right. And, if you look at the sustainable energy industry right now, it completely verifies what you just said.
Of course.
It's a huge growth for economy, good paying jobs in solar. The proof is there that we don't need things
half
like
of the
Diablo.
new jobs created in California last year. California, as you know, has been leading the nation in terms of its economic recovery.
Yeah.
Half of the new jobs last year were in the solar industry. And they're middle-class jobs.
Mm-hmm.
These are not burger flipping jobs. These are installers. These are electricians. These are technicians. So the future, the sunrise industries are the ones that are going to be dealing with green energy. And the variety of green energy proposals is enormous.
It's really impressive how many sources of clean energy are available, depending on where you live, and there's always variations, geothermal up in the Northwest and things like that.
Well, I would argue that, in fact, geothermal is going to be a game changer in the next 10 years because you can do it anywhere that the ground is hot, and the ground is hot everywhere in the world because the mantle of the earth is very, very hot.
Mm-hmm.
But take a state like Hawaii, for example, where they've been operating the Puna geothermal facility for many years. That one geothermal facility could easily power the entire state of Hawaii. I mean,
just from one source.
yeah.
Wow.
And I don't think you should power the whole state from one source, because Hawaii also has great sunshine. It also has great wind.
Yeah.
It has all kinds of good things.
And you always got to have a redundancy in any system.
Yeah, but it's good to know it's there. And people, one of the challenges people throw at renewable energy, they say, well, the sun doesn't shine at night and wind doesn't blow all the time. That's right, it doesn't. But if you build a microgrid with integration of various resources, and you build in storage, there's no question you can build something self-sustaining, as we're doing we've designed it for Santa Barbara County. Let me give you an example. People don't realize this, but the Diablo power plant, and they should have known when they called it Diablo, the devil power plant. That should have been their first clue, right? I mean, who was asleep on that one? So Diablo Canyon, when it was first conceived, and they agreed to build it, they have what's called a standby power facility, which nobody knows about. And what it is it's called the Helms Pumping Station. And here's how it operates. And it is so big, it generates half the total power of Diablo. And what it is it's just a lake up the mountain. And what they do is when there's excess power on the grid in California at night, because we make way more power at night than we make in the daytime, they use it to pump water uphill. And then when you turn the air conditioners on during the day, they release the water. It comes streaming down, it turns a turbine, and creates hydroelectric power.
Simple.
But it's completely renewable because you can pump that water back up again tonight. And that total power that it puts out is 50% of Diablo. And it's dedicated to Diablo. We don't even use it for anything else but Diablo. So when we shut Diablo down, guess what? Half of the power of Diablo is already sitting there in a pump and store facility, already hooked into the grid.
Wow.
Right there. Okay? That's just for openers. It gets better. You could do so much wind. I mean, you take a place like Lompoc. That place was designed for wind. I mean, it's got great wind.
Yeah, I lived there for years. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Love to replace the Diablo power plant with some of that. There's a technology which is being demonstrated right now as we speak, where they take the equivalent of a bunch of boxcars, and they fill them full of rocks. And they take them, and they use an electric motor to pull them up the side of a mountain at night. Okay, so it's what's called stored kinetic energy.
Right.
Now, in a state in total drought, without a drop of water, you can put that system in, and all you need is cast iron wheels.
You need motion.
That's it.
Right.
And you create that with pumping it up, by sending it up the mountain at night when you have excess power. So a couple of the stories you mentioned today, actually, we covered right when they came out in a free news service I want all of your listeners to take for free. It's called The Optimist Daily.
The Optimist Daily.
Send a request to info@worldbusiness and we'll sign you up for free. And every day at 3 a.m. in the morning Pacific time, we send out 5 stories.
Okay.
And you get them in your email as just 5 lines. Now, why do people want to read The Optimist Daily? Well, the reason they want to read it is because if you read 5 solutions a day, which is what we send out, and it comes in as a single line. If you like what it says, you go to the article. The article is only 75 words. Okay. You can read it real quick. And if you want to read more, you click, it'll take you to a much longer article. And the reason I'm mentioning it to you is because I believe that when people have optimistic solutions available for what they thought were insurmountable problems, they begin to realize, wow, we got more solutions than problems if we just apply them. And it changes your mindset. Right. You go from cynicism to, oh my God, the sky is falling, I can't do anything, to like, hey, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could do that. And pretty soon changes your frame of mind.
Right. There's options. There's things that can be done.
It's solutions news. Anyway, that's it. You got it. That's the service. If anybody wants it, we hope that everybody wants it. I want to get 100 million people starting their day with at least one positive thought. It'll only take you 30 seconds. Why not?
It's a noble goal. Well, closing Diablo Canyon, that's a positive thought.
It is.
And and it's nice to know it's going to happen. Hopefully sooner than later. And glad to know we got guys like you on the job facilitating that end.
And I'll tell you, the number one thing you can do to help us is we need contributions. We are David, and there is a Goliath.
Right.
And I got to have the price of rocks. I got to have some rocks.
Right. I can keep the slings sewed together, but
I got to have a rock or two. I got to have something.
Well, Ronaldo, thank you again. It's always a pleasure, and hopefully we'll get together sooner than later and look up some of these links, follow up some of this information that's been discussed, and let's all work together to build the world that we want to live in. Well, this is Michael Shanti. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of your night.